Hello and welcome to the first in our series of TalkCIS Interviews. My name is Julian Tyndall-Biscoe, and over the course of the series I'll be talking to individuals involved in developing community indicator systems, taking community data and presenting it in such a way that a wide audience has access to it. Today I'm joined by three individuals who have plenty of experience between them in developing community indicator systems. They are Susan Brucci, President, Applied Survey Research; Ben Warner, Deputy Director, Jacksonville Community Council; and Joe Baldwin, Senior Research Planner at the Health and Human Services Coordinating Council for Pinellas County. Hello to you all. I wanted to ask Joe first, if you could just tell us a little bit about the reports that you've been producing and who uses them.
Well, thanks, and hello, everyone. The community is here in Pinellas County is really driving towards change. So we're focused on achieving community results. So really, there's a wide group of stakeholders that are using the system, from senior executives and elected officials right down to grassroots users. So the community indicator system, PinellasIndicators.org, is really designed to be a tool that helps drive the community towards achieving some desired results.
Okay, and perhaps I can bring Ben into this, because I know this is something that, Ben, you've been thinking about as well, is whether users who are, when they have access to this data in a map report, whether they really understand what they're looking at and how they interrogate it. Does it really make sense to them? What do you think?
Well, what we found is that people can, when they see it on a map and can see places where the problems are more intense than others, where the data are stronger or at higher levels than in other areas, the people who can't read or intuitively read a graph or a chart will see those and will process it differently. It becomes very visual, and so one of the advantages to displaying the information on a map is to be able to provide the same information for people who are much more visually oriented than they are numerically oriented. And so we have people who you can present them a chart of numbers and they won't understand what they're seeing, but if you present a map, they can say, I can see this, I can see where the problems are, I can see where we need to have change in policy, change in direction, change in perhaps funding for an issue. Becomes a lot easier for them to understand.
Okay, and just in terms of getting all the data in one place, I don't know whether, Susan, perhaps you could help answer on this one. So presumably a lot of organizations get involved in bringing the data into one place, and that in itself presents challenges, I guess.
Yes, it's actually quite dynamic, this process of integrating several different data sources and data elements for each one of our indicators. I think it helps keep the system kind of lively and continuously improving. So there's the benefit of being able to amass data from several different data sources and track it over time, and kind of normalizing that kind of data relationships within communities. That's really exciting. And then I think also that keeps the data relevant, because the programs themselves are making sure that they are aligned with the community assessment, in this case, goals. And so they want their program information to be linked to those community goals. So it's a nice two-way relationship, and I think the benefits are, first of all, as I mentioned, that it keeps the data fresh and compelling, but it also brings in lots of new data sources, and that's changing year after year. So we've seen an evolution through time of other stakeholders participating in this indicator process.
So it feels like a very dynamic thing, and something, as you say, that's sucking in organizations that may not normally work together. I don't know whether, Joe, in Pinellas, whether you have I have experience of that same thing happening with you.
Oh, no, absolutely. I just want to echo what both Ben and Susan mentioned is the capacity of these systems, and I think we're all working towards this goal of really using this as a tool to communicate to the stakeholders, and whether they have a strength or they're able to consume the data numerically, or really having some really powerful data visualization tools are really important, so that stakeholders, no matter what their professions are or what their walk of life, are able to understand what the issues are and be able to contribute towards, in a collaborative way, making an impact on the desired results for our community. In Pinellas County, the organization that I represent, the Health and Human Services Coordinating Council for Pinellas County, is designed to really develop more better health and human services systems, delivery systems, and so we're focused on really for desired results, and it's an iterative process as we look at these broad desired results that the community wants to achieve, and then within them there's areas that really we're working to better link the community indicators with performance measures.
And it's the results that are the key here, because I would like to talk about what the future holds, but it's very much about directing resources so that they are used effectively on the ground. And I think that you probably are in a similar situation to here in the UK, where we have obviously financial pressures in public services. We're looking more and more closely at the way that money is spent. And I wondered, Ben, maybe if you could if that same thing is being echoed in the United States, and whether the way that resources are being spent is being looked at, and whether these CIS systems are playing an important role.
I think they become critical. As in the past, we had the luxury of, as one person put it, a sort of spray and pray approach to funding different kinds of programs. You could put a lot of money into a lot of different programs. You would hope some different programs would work. You would hope that you're doing the right thing in funding successful programs. But right now, resources are so incredibly limited that we're having to be much more selective. We need to make sure that we've identified what the most critical issues are, where the most critical areas are to fund. Maybe the most critical issue might be dealing with a teen birth rate or with a high school dropout rate. But we don't have the resources to be able to put programs in all of the schools and address all of the students. So we have to be able to pinpoint where those resources can be used most effectively. And you can't do that just by guessing. You have to be able to use data, and use data much more effectively and efficiently than we have in the past.
And Susan, one of the things I wanted also to bring in was very often there is on the ground a perceived knowledge. So people will assume that they understand a particular area or a particular area of need, and yet actually the data says something quite different. And I wondered whether, very often, as you say, Ben, things in the past have been, money's been spent maybe according to what people believed was the case, as opposed to actually what is the case. And Susan, I don't know whether that's something that you've found, that when you actually see the data presented in this way, it actually does mean that you can pinpoint very accurately, and that often it contradicts or goes against what was a commonly held view.
Yeah, I think that we've seen that. Ben's example was the spray and pray. We call it throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. That's kind of like the old way that and maybe possible when resources are not quite as stretched as they are now. But these data tools, especially when they've been arrived at in a participatory process, continuously updated, really provide you a much better and more precise way of looking at what the priority should be. And I think that the mapping is a very key piece here. And we had a really great example where, of course, people in communities know where there are hot spots of need and vulnerable populations, but amassing several sets of indicators and developing a kind of a risk profile and tracking that through time, we actually saw dispelled some myths about some areas in a county, and actually gave even the elected representative of that area the courage and the backup to say, we probably have been getting a little bit more here than we deserve. We should send it to another part of the community that has a higher vulnerability. And for an elected official to do that kind of a resource modification is really the exact reason why you want to have these data available to be able to provide those types of hot spots, to not just listen to what's on the ground, but to actually put things together in a way that you can clearly see not only are these the hot spots, but then you can continue to track that through time as well.
That's a very brave thing to do, isn't it? To be able to say, well, historically, we may have been getting more than we needed, and this is actually another area that needs it just as much as we do or more. So it's a very powerful example. And I wondered, perhaps, Joe, if you could just tell us a little bit about the future as you see it for a community indicator system, a community indicator system, such as the one that you have. What do you think it looks like?
I think I want to touch on this notion, if I may, Julian, about it's an iterative process, and it's if I could use an analogy, since I won't use a spaghetti analogy, but maybe a snowball, if you will, or I like to use a potluck dinner approach, where really, given the economic climate, I think that we really need to be more efficient with the way that we're using funds, and rather than of having a central repository that all the agencies, if I'm talking specifically about Pinellas County in this case, and the way we're approaching this as we evolve, because we're certainly really in the beginning steps of really of not just putting up indicators and using the low-hanging fruit approach to indicators, but really starting to focus on what does the community want from a variety of health and human services agencies, the lead health and human services agencies, and what do they want to achieve, and then what are the results that we want to impact. Then what is the investment that leads into the whole notion. We're going down to small levels of geography and looking at trends over time, and sort of echoing what Susan said, and then linking what the community investment is. So looking at what the need is, if you will. That's what the community indicator system will tell us at small levels of geography, and looking at trends and patterns over time. And then what are the agencies doing to impact them in looking at how their performance measures, or what they're doing, their mission of their agency and program to impact those. And those are looking at that from a geographical perspective, is how do our assets map over the county, and then looking at what the investment is, and then sort of doing an analysis and say, well, given limited resources, is this investment going to be able to produce the impact that we want to see over time? So this is it's evolved, the community indicator systems, and rightly they should. It's a constant or it's an iterative process that works to find the tools, and but they are tools to strive towards outcomes, and I think that's what you're hearing from Susan and Ben also.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's this longitudinal analysis that really gives these systems their the advantage, I suppose, is the ability to look back and say, well, this is changing over time, and as Susan says, data is being added all the time, so it gives you a richer picture. Well, I think that's been a very interesting session. I don't know whether, Ben, you want to add anything before we go, but just in terms of the way that these systems develop and are iterative, but certainly it feels as though there's a lot to go at still, and the benefits are in some cases still to be had.
Well, I think one of the challenges and opportunities when we started working with community indicators back 26 years ago, the problem was that no one had good information and weren't used to using data to make good information. We're in the middle of a shift right now in which more and more data are being created every day, and more people have access to information, and there are more and more sophisticated technologies, handheld individual devices that are good at processing information. So we're getting to the point where the problem isn't not enough data, it's a problem of understanding what good data looks like and how to understand and properly use good data, which means that our role in the community has changed from providing information to being able to help cull, explain, and help the community determine what the most important information is to look at and understand how to use that information more effectively to get change. And I suspect when we talk about the future, we're seeing a transition point where the real democratization of information is going to allow much more community involvement in decision making and force tremendous policy changes. We are seeing world shifts as people look at information differently and look at their role with government differently, whether it's people massing in the streets in countries that have never known democracy to people who 500,000 march down the middle of the street because they have known democracy and they expect different from the people that they elected. This is the real change that good data systems are going to be able to put a real shift in power back to the people. And that's what I think the future of community indicator systems really does. It doesn't just empower decision makers to make better decisions. It empowers communities to hold decision makers accountable for good decision making.
Well, thank you for all your contributions. It's been a very interesting program. And I hope that you'll be able to join us next time for another in our series of TalkCIS. In the meantime, if you would like further information about community indicator systems, please visit instantatlas.com/CIS.